Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
How you guys doing this evening?
Wonderful yourself.
So I want to welcome you all to tonight's Borough Board meeting. For those who don't know me, my name is Anthony Drummond, the Borough President's Policy Analyst for Transportation and Housing, and I will be chairing the meeting for you guys this evening. So with that, we have on the agenda a presentation from the Waterfront Alliance on Take the Wedge Pledge to Shape a Better Waterfront. And in addition, we have a presentation from Prospect Park Alliance for plans and proposals of the Long Meadow Ball Field. So those are our two items on this evening's agenda. And also, just as a reminder for everyone here that is going to be speaking or say anything, to please make sure to speak in the mic clearly for recording purposes. So with that, I would like to ask my colleague Keisha to call the roll.
Good evening. Councilmember Barron? I see you. Councilmember Carnegie? Councilmember Cumbo?
He's here.
You here? Oh, okay. Councilmember Deutsch?
Here.
Councilmember Espinal? Councilmember Eugene? Councilmember Brannon?
Here.
Councilmember Yeager? Councilmember Lander? Councilmember Levin? Councilmember Mizell? Okay. Councilmember Samuel? Councilmember Menchaca? Councilmember Reynoso? Councilmember Traeger?
Here.
Councilmember Williams?
Yeah.
Community Board 1? Community Board 2? Community Board 3?
Here.
Community Board 4?
Yeah.
Community Board 5? Community Board 6? Community Board 7? Community Board 8? Community Board 9? Community Board 10?
Here.
Community Board 11? Community Board 12? Community Board 13? Community Board 14?
Here.
Okay. Community Board 15?
Here.
Community Board 16? Community Board 17? Community Board 18? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Keisha. So first I'd like to present and entertain a motion. Well, first, everybody had a chance to review over the minutes from the November 7th meeting. If so, I'd like to entertain a motion for approval. Oh, wait a minute, we don't have quorum. Okay, never mind. So wait until later. Hopefully some extra people show up and we'll get quorum, and then we'll go back to the minutes for approval. So we'll move on with the rest of the agenda. So we'll start off with the first item on the agenda, the presentation from the Waterfront Alliance on the Wedge Pledge to Shape Better Waterfronts.
Hi, everyone. How's everybody doing? Good. Well, thank you for having me here today. I'm very excited to be talking to you all. My name is Sarah Doherty, and I'm presenting from the Waterfront Alliance. So, by a show of hands, is anybody here familiar with us? Great. It's at least 5. And also by a show of hands, is anybody representing waterfront boards or districts? All right. So the Waterfront Alliance is a nonprofit that works to enable and inspire resilient, revitalized, and accessible communities for all. We're an alliance of over 1,000 partners, so we've worked with probably groups in your district from Newtown Creek Alliance to Row, New York to Brooklyn Bridge Park Conservancy. But the two things that I'm here to talk to you about are two tools that are free and easy to use that we've created to help community districts advocate for better waterfront development. So that's waterfront development that's more resilient to flooding and sea level rise, and also that's more equitable and has better public access. So the first of those tools is the Waterfront Edge Design Guidelines, which has a great acronym WEDGE, which is similar to the LEED certification, but for waterfront development. And the second tool is our Harbor Scorecard, which shows you, gives you stats about your community district's waterfront. So I just wanted to pause here and lead with an ask, which is that you all have this draft resolution in front of you that I believe you'll be voting on at the next meeting.
No, we do not.
Oh, no? Okay. Well, we can get, I have a couple of extras. In any case, we can share it. But the Waterfront Alliance has a movement that's led by community boards. It's a grassroots movement to hold developers to better waterfront standards. So this is especially important as waterfronts are developing quickly. Gentrification is changing a lot of waterfronts, and climate change is also really posing a threat to the communities you serve. So we ask community boards to take the WEDGE pledge to demand better waterfronts, and we'd like the Brooklyn Borough Board to consider adopting a resolution to require developers to use WEDGE as a reference and a standard for waterfront projects. So I'll get into that a little bit further on. So to back up the work we've done in Brooklyn, we've been around for over 10 years. We've advocated for the citywide ferry system, and we're continuing to advocate for stops in Canarsie, considering stops in Coney Island Creek. We've also certified 4 projects through our WEDGE program. That's Domino Sugar in Dumbo, Greenpoint Landing, Brooklyn Bridge Parks, and Sunset Material Recovery Facility. And we've also worked with our alliance partners to get kids out on the water for programming, educational programming and recreation. So is everybody intimately familiar with these rights, these state, federal, and local rights to waterfront, great waterfronts? No? Well, these are your rights. We have lots of rights in this city that protect our rights to great waterfronts, and that's why we do our work. And when we do that, this can be the result. Is anybody from CB2 here, Brooklyn Bridge Park area? Well, this is Brooklyn Bridge Park, and it shows waterfront access, people swimming on a beach, maritime uses in the background, a picnic peninsula, right with the view of the waterfront, and a resilient shoreline and preserved habitat, all in a very dense urban environment. But of course, not all waterfronts look like this, and flooding and sea level rise are really taking a toll on coastal communities already. The risks are increasing, but also the cost is increasing. In the US alone, we spend an average of $2 billion each year on average flood insurance claims, and flood insurance rates are continuing to rise and placing a strong burden on homeowners and landowners. And even though over 40% of our country lives in coastal communities, we're often physically disconnected because what we like to call esplanadia, where we're just designing these big walkways that aren't programmed and can disconnect you from the waterfront, and that makes people emotionally disconnected from the waterfront. And we're also losing our wetlands. We've lost over 85% of our wetlands in New York City, which is making it harder for us to mitigate the long-term effects of climate change. So you might not have it, but if you don't, we'll give it to you. It's also on our website. We've developed, one of the 2 tools I'm here to talk to you about is the Harbor Scorecard. So you can find in your community district your risk to experiencing a major flood in the next 40 years. So I pulled up Coney Island's profile, which shows that 66% of people living in Coney Island are at major risk of experiencing major flood by 2060. And that's far above the Brooklyn average and far above the New York average. So with this information, you can advocate as a community district, knowing what the state of your waterfront is, When you are looking at projects that come through ULURP, that come before the board, and to tell developers, look, resilience is a major problem for our district, and we want you to design better waterfront projects that can meet these challenges. So like the LEED certification, are people familiar with LEED? Show of hands. So LEED started this movement of creating certifications for buildings to be have better energy efficiency. So like LEED, we're a set of guidelines and credits that we can score different waterfront projects with to become wedge certified. So if they're wedge certified, they are resilient to floods, they're more sustainable, and they have better public access, and they're built through an equitable development process. But most importantly, this isn't just a tool that engineers and designers can use, it's also an advocacy tool that you can use to talk to your constituents about what good waterfronts look like. So the next couple slides show just a small sample of credits that are in wedge. Starting with, we place a very strong emphasis on going above and beyond the engagement requirements, local engagement requirements, whether it's working with community boards through ULURP. We want developers to really understand existing work that's been done in the community and how their project speaks to community needs. We also worked with the insurance industry to work on developing guidance to make buildings more resilient. So a lot of times in the city we can't site outside the floodplain, but we have to do things to our properties that make them able to withstand major floods and storms. This was a project in Newtown Creek. We worked with the landowner at this property to show him how he could improve his public access and ecology. And when we talked to an engineer about this design, it was actually 70%, I think 70% cheaper than the harder solution, which used more concrete in the design. So we also place a strong emphasis on working with community to design public space that serves a broad range of needs. And lastly, we focus on the area where the water actually meets the land. Does anybody know where this picture is? This is not in Brooklyn. This is the one non-Brooklyn picture I allowed in the slideshow. Yes, it is. Ding, ding, ding. So this is Hunters Point South in Queens, which is a wedge certified project. Brooklyn Bridge Park also has really great resilient edges, but it shows restored wetland and a more resilient edge. So that's the end of my presentation, but I encourage all of you to reach out to me. Sarah, my email is at the bottom. I'll also hand out cards. But I would love to hear about issues that you're facing in your waterfront communities, and I'm scheduling meetings with land use committees. I've already reached out to all of you, but we'll be following up in the next couple months to learn more about your districts and also encourage you to adopt resolutions requiring or encouraging developers to use wedge for waterfront projects. So if you're interested, please contact me, and if the Borough Board is voting on it at the next meeting, I hope you will consider it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Yeah.
Oh, do we have time for questions?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, great.
Are there any questions for Sarah? Go ahead.
Teresa Scavo, Community Board 15. What's the advantage to a developer to build according to your standards and guidelines?
Great question. We have spent a lot of time talking to developers. Developers actually come to us with questions because these are very challenging issues. Designing to be able to withstand the next Hurricane Sandy is tough, and so we have the best guidance for creating or reducing properties' flood risk and damage from storms. So that's one major reason, and there are long-term economic benefits to that. Another reason is we have a good name with communities, and we community groups trust us, we work with them, and so if developers work with us when they're going through ULURP, we can help with better community engagement and just improve relationships and communications between all the different actors that are involved in that process. And last but not least, I think another major incentive is that when developers adhere to our guidelines, they're often set up better in the permitting process, which makes that very complicated permitting process a lot quicker.
All right. CB14.
Ed Powell, CB14. Say a developer takes this pledge, is there any way of, you guys have any way of guaranteeing that the developer will honor the pledge and live up to it?
That is a very good question. We know a lot of developers, and I don't have the best answer for you. I think the power of this movement is to get as many people, and really driven by community boards, to take the pledge first, so they know how important it is to New Yorkers. And then sort of the same thing with affordable housing. If developers are more trusted, then they might get more projects than others. So I think it's, we like to know developers before they take it, but I think it's sort of in the power of the movement.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Bartow?
Richard Flatto, Community Board 3. Couple of questions. One, what does it mean if your board's not on the scorecard? And second thing, what is the cost associated with obtaining a certification?
I'll answer your second question first. It is free right now. It won't be forever, but we have to survive. But it is free now, and as an advocacy group, and if you have questions, certainly from the community board, you can call us, and we're happy to meet with you as we can to discuss projects and questions. Secondly, so your community board 3. You are not on here. This is harbor wides, or
Right, they're in the central.
oh, right. So you're not you're not
Yeah,
on
they're
the
So we
waterfront.
don't have a significant flood risk.
I would guess that you're not in the area of highest risk, but if you're not on the waterfront, this pertains just to waterfront districts.
Okay.
There are other flooding issues that inland communities face, and I'm happy to talk about those from rain and other infrastructure issues. So we can follow up separately, maybe.
Okay.
Yep.
Community Board 8?
On that note, Community Board 8, on that note, do you get involved at all with street design and things like bioswales and that kind of water runoff? Is that something that you work with?
I wish we could work with everything, but no. We focus on the design of waterfront public space. So yeah, short answer is no. DEP, and depending on where you are, I know Gowanus Canal Conservancy,
Yeah.
but to look for Crown Heights, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I just like to make the observation, the fact that one is not on the harbor doesn't mean
Microphone.
Yeah, the fact that a community board may not be at the waterway doesn't mean that our constituents, our neighbors, our friends and family would not want to avail themselves of the waterways, be it swimming, be it boating, and the like. So I think as we all become more aware of the climate activity, that anything that can be a help is something that we can all get behind. But obviously what we need is answers like the questions that were asked. What is the cost to a developer, and the like. I think those are pertinent costs, or what are benefits that a developer might derive. Those are some of the questions that some of the answers that hopefully you and others would have as you take this to the community boards.
That's a very good point. We're actually, the Waterfront Alliance more broadly is working, by my colleague Kate, who's in the back, on a action plan for the city to look more closely at the cost of building more resilient buildings. So that's our focus in the next 5 years, but there's not a lot of great information out yet. There's a clear economic benefit in terms of reducing your flood insurance premiums when you design to our standard, and also just in terms of if your property is damaged and it's not built well, the damage that you'll have to pay for when a storm hits would presumably be greater than if you didn't incorporate our standard. But good points, it's good messaging.
Okay. Any more? One? Mr. Flato?
Yeah, do you have any idea how much additional time this would add to a development project?
We're a lot less complicated than LEED, which is the biggest, I would say, sort of an industry leader in certifications. I don't have an exact number, but I would estimate developers haven't been hiring consultants to do this work. We've usually worked one-on-one with a lead project manager, and it usually takes about 2 months, and I don't have an hour estimate, but it's not, right now it's not a very long process.
Okay. All right. If there are no more questions, I'd like to thank Sarah for presenting to us in the Waterfront Alliance.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And one more thing. I don't think everyone here has a copy of the resolution, but Keisha mentioned that she will be able to email it out to you guys. Or if you want it in a hard copy, let me get a show of hands. Do you guys want a hard copy? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, so we'll have 5 hard copies, and everyone else will get a copy emailed to you. All right, so our next item, I'd like to a presentation from the Prospect Park Alliance for the proposal for the Long Meadow Ball Field. I'd like to welcome Christian Zimmerman to do a presentation. Welcome.
Thank you. So we're in our final stages of the restoration of the Long Meadow ball fields. I'm Christian Zimmerman. I'm the Vice President of Capital and Landscape Management for the Prospect Park Alliance. We have 7 ball fields on the Long Meadow. We are in the final 2, so it's fields 2 and 3. And this has been funded by Councilmember Brad Lander, and we've been working our way through. So this is very exciting for us to finally get to this point. Heavily used fields, like all recreation fields in Brooklyn. It's these 2 fields. They're closer to 9th Street, to give you a sense, or there's the tennis house at the top. To the lower left would be Field 1, which is closer to Prospect Park West and Prospect Park Southwest. So these are our last 2. You can see as we've been converting our fields, the difference, the major difference is that we've gone to an all-skinned infield. So you see the 3 that are completely skinned. The ones on the lower right go into construction this fall or next spring. And what that's done, and working with the leagues, is it's allowed us to make them more usable. So it's not just baseball, it's not just softball, it's not just Little League. By having the skinned field, it's a much flexible kind of space. So we've been working with all the leagues to allow them then to be able to float around. These are just some of the location plans that we need to do for the Parks Department. This is the location, the fenced-in area, or the construction limit line. Kind of shows you what we're working on. We're including in this, if you know these fields at all, the path next to it has very poor drainage. It's really, really bad shape. We have collapsed drains. And the intersection at the top left is really this tight junction point for a lot of activity, and it's very decayed and degraded. This is the old fields. The last time they were constructed was in the 1980s, so it's been a long time, and they just wear out. So clay buildup, backstops are wearing out, the fence is bowed, poor drainage on the infield. Anytime it rains, the leagues have a lot of work to do, and our staff trying to clean them up. Here's where you can see just a lot of erosion. And there's our big drainage. We have a lake forming between fields 2 and 1. So we're desperately wanting to fix this. This is a collapsed drainage system. So we'll take care of that. It's not just ball fields, it's how you access the ball fields. So that's our focus area. So we'll be reconstructing the infields, making them skinned, adding all new drainage, all new irrigation, plumbing for the drinking water, new backstops. We put shade structures now on our backstop, or in our dugout areas. So, and those are flexible. We've been working with the leagues in creating a type of shade structure that they can take down and put up. We put in, we have new, essentially, storage boxes for each league. And then it'll be new drainage as well, new pathway, widening the intersection for access as well. So you can see all of that. They're also we're making the dugouts deeper and longer. So they've been a little tight. And then we add little amenities like bat racks, places where they can just have everything like that stored. There's a new clay bin in the middle. Right now, what we have to do is our turf crew comes over and just dumps a pile of clay in a spot. And then that migrates because there's no place for it to be held. So now we're creating these. We've been doing this on the other fields, just creating that space for them. So we have a little holding area. New benches. We have a lot of trees in this area, so we don't have to add trees. But new benches as well, new paving. These are our standards. They've, that have been approved by the Landmarks Commission, Parks Public Design Commission, everybody. So you can see the storage bins, the shade structures to the lower left, drinking fountains, bat racks. It's a pretty straightforward project, but it's a really important project because we just don't have enough fields that work adequately, so we need to make them at their highest quality and to be able to rotate all the leagues. That's it. Any questions?
All right.
This would go into, it's in design right now, and the idea that it will follow fields 4 and 5. So fields 4 and 5 go into construction next spring. It'll be a year. This would then go into construction the following year.
Okay, thank you. CB4?
CB4 Camacho. What are the age that the baseball field, the people can use the field? Is there a specific?
There isn't an age because we've made them for universal use. So before fields, these two fields were just baseball, and then we had softball fields. So this is from small children, little league, to t-ball to adult softball.
This is a Parks Department of play field?
These are Parks permitted fields, yes.
Oh, I thought all parks were 12 and under. And there's supposed to be some sort of measurement between the pitcher's mound and the catcher's mound in order to make it an adult baseball because of the kids are so little. And if you have kids now, you know how kids are, they're big. A fastball going there, you hurt someone, that's a liability issue.
So what we've done, working with the baseball leagues, 78 is the big league here for Little League baseball, and then we have also softball, by making it a skin field for a baseball. So the larger surface is for baseball. But what happens is if we have a Little League game, everything shrinks and they bring it in. And what the baseball teams have decided is don't build a mound. We'll bring in portable mounds. So they bring in the portable mounds and they move them per permit per game. So they adjust it. So that's permitted that way. So we work around their schedules and whatever league, but it's without a mound. So it's set up for softball as well. But they chose to do that. They asked us.
Okay, any other questions? CB3?
Richard Flateau, excuse me, Community Board 3. What other sports besides baseball will be utilizing these fields? And also, could you tell us what the total project cost is?
Sure. So in the fall, there's soccer in the outfields. So we have soccer. There's permitting for ultimate frisbee as well. But for the most part, it's soccer and baseball, softball, whether it's Little League or high school baseball. I don't believe there's anything other than that. We don't have football on these fields. The cost of this project, the final cost, was the borough president, actually, the mayor's office put in $800,000. So this is now $1,550,000 for the final phase.
Okay. Mrs. Skinner?
Not being a ball player, I have no idea what having a fully skinned ball fields mean. Could you say
sorry.
that in some English
So,
as opposed to...
sorry about that. So in the previous fields had a grass infield. So I think I can quickly go back. So you see in the upper right, at the top, there's grass in there. So they'd have a grass infield. That just became so problematic because, one, it restricted to single-use activity. So they could only play baseball on fields, those two fields, 2 and 3. So if you wanted to have softball, it just couldn't happen. So, and then the downside for the baseball, previously, the other ones were just set up for softball. So we only played baseball on fields 2 and 3. So if the rains were heavy enough and you couldn't play on those fields, baseball couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't ask to play on field 1, 6, 7, 4, or 5. So the idea, they came to us, all the leagues, and said, can we make these fields more flexible? And by having it a completely skinned infield, allowed the flexibility. So the base paths could be 60 feet, they could be 90 feet.
Skin mean grass or the skin
Skinned means clay. So just you're removing all of the grass. I'm sorry. Yeah. So now it's clay, and also we've been installing a new type of clay that's more porous. We add Turfus. It's a product it's a conditioner that baseball uses as well, like the Mets. Actually, they donate it to us, and it adds. So when we have rain, it conditions the field and absorbs the water quicker. So we've really increased the drainage possibilities.
Okay, any other questions from Mrs. Zimmerman? All right, seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, well, this was a very quick agenda. So the last item we have on here is our unfinished business, new business. Is there any member around here at the board that has any items for either unfinished business or new business? None?
Well, on behalf of Councilmember Williams,
Speaking to Mike.
on
Mrs.
behalf
Skinner.
of Councilmember Williams, I want to wish everyone a happy Chris Kwanzaa. So whether you celebrate Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah, all right, we express those greetings on your behalf.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else? Okay, well, yeah, I'll mention that. So since we are one short of quorum, so we will not have the approval of the minutes at this meeting. So the next meeting on January 2nd, there will be, hopefully with quorum, approval of the November minutes there. So with that,
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
you're ready to go.
Do you have unfinished business?
No, actually, I do not. But since we didn't have a quorum, I didn't think we can make a motion or put
Sure
a
we
quorum
can.
in. Okay, well, thank you. All right. Well, with that, I want to wish everyone here a great happy holidays, happy New Year's, and we'll see you next year in January 2nd.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you guys. Have a good one. Meeting adjourned.